What's up, fantasy football people? Welcome to the fantasy football channel. We are the Schluter Bros. We are here to get you draft ready this offseason, help you dominate your league this year. Every week, we will dive into one NFL team, give you the fantasy impact. Adam, what's on tap? What's up over there?
Welcome, welcome. How we doing, Kyle?
Living the dream, man.
What's shaking today over there?
Oh, another day in paradise. Today, we're talking Raiders.
Yes, we are. Viva Las Vegas, baby. Viva Las Vegas. Um, we are going to break down the good old Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to break down all the relevant players. Quite the new faces in this organization. Let me tell you what. Of course, we're going to break down the big and burleys, the O-line breakdown as well. Something like we'd like to add here as we dive into these teams each week. We're going to start like mock draft videos and have these videos be as pertinent to ADP as possible. Obviously, there's not a ton of ADP data out there yet, but as that comes in, you're going to hear a lot more about that from us. Last disclaimer from today: if you hear the phrase Oakland, just assume that means Las Vegas because that's still engraved into my mind.
Just think about your favorite place to go.
Yeah, Viva Las Vegas, baby. That's one of them. All right, let's get into the drama here, Kyle. Start us off.
All right, Derek Carr, man. Thank you for your time. Derek Carr officially retired from the NFL at age 34.
Absolutely. Pretty
Great
solid career.
Wish him the best in his retirement. Do you think the odds are he gets called in somewhere at some point?
I don't, because it sounds like the retirement is more pertinent to his shoulder injury than
he
him
has
not
had a
wanting
few
to play
shoulder
anymore.
injuries.
Yeah, I know they busted it up real good last year. I remember him coming off the field. I think it is more about his health than it is about his age. But you never know, maybe he gets it all lubricated up when he gets back out there, but I doubt it with what I read.
Wish him the best. Next up, Gabe Davis gets released. If you're listening to this, please go back to episode 2 where we discussed the Jags and specifically around the 18-minute mark where we talked about Gabe Davis. I think it's hilarious considering he just got released.
It was a deserving roast is what it was. and I think the GM might have heard that minute of that video because he was like, you know what? The
Is he a subscriber?
Right.
He should subscribe.
You might as
the
well.
GMs are making moves off this show.
Episode 2, 18-minute mark. Give it a listen. You'll give a good chuckle out of that one. All right. What else we got here?
Pickens to Dallas. George Pickens, very interesting player. Obviously, former with the Steelers. He's really young. I think he's only like 23 years old. He's a really talented pass catcher. He clearly had a little bit of maturity struggles from what I saw on the field out there.
He's a goofy guy.
Yes, but very talented. It's clear that they just decided it doesn't look like it's a best team fit here. Send him to Dallas. Dallas with CD and George, though. I mean, that receiving room just got a huge upgrade, in my opinion.
It did. They've needed a true number 2 for a while. They're going to take some pressure off CD with this one. Very confused. I know, like we said with Steelers, they probably did this from a maturation standpoint, but they get DK. They get DK Metcalf over there. All right, we got 2 good studs on the outside, and then nope, see you later, Pickens. So I think the Steelers kind of go back to square one. And Dallas and good old Jerry Jones makes at least one move that he can say he did something this offseason. And
really, in fantasy, I just give Dak Prescott a tick up with this move. Is how I initially look at this. CD, I mean, maybe you could do a slight tick down, but he's still such an elite talent and player. But I could see obviously some yards and touchdowns falling to George now versus the competition that was there.
Yeah, that's the constant argument of, all right, it's going to take some targets away, sure, but does it relieve pressure and eyes from that safety rolling over to allow for a little bit more freedom on the outside and on those deep routes? And I guess we'll see about that.
Yeah, that's always kind of the trade-off there.
Yeah.
All right, last up for news, Jonathan Brooks, running back for the Panthers, out for the season 2025. He's battled some knee injuries. He's out again. Talented young player. Hasn't really seen much NFL time due to these injuries. Unfortunate for him. You'll probably take, what's his name over there that's been there, just underrated for the last couple of years. He gets another boost.
Sure. And what a shame this is. What a shame this is. You hate to see a young guy go down ever. You hate to see anyone go down ever, but a guy that's really hasn't even gotten his feet under him in his NFL career.
Yeah.
And he takes another blow to the chin with this one. It makes you wonder how long can someone sit out of the NFL and of these hits and still come back and kind of make it. That's a tough trade-off. It's you kind of need to be in the flow of things to keep it rolling, but hopefully they get that knee back up there and hopefully he can, really shine at some point in his career.
Chuba Hubbard was who I was thinking of.
Yeah. Good old Chuba.
Makes him even more valuable, in my opinion.
Great value pick, Chuba. Always gets the carries. Good value pick there.
All right, let's do your target segment here. Why don't you get us started?
Yes, sir. So today we're going to break down a little target segment. What we mean by that is we're going to do one dynasty acquisition target that's on our minds, one redraft target, and one rookie target, and break down why. I'm going to lead us into this with a redraft target, okay? And my redraft target is Drake London. And I will say I have not owned any shares of Drake London before, but I do want to own some this year. London, last year, 23 years old, still a young cat, 3 seasons in the NFL. Last year, he had his first 100-catch season, which was awesome to see. But why I have him as my redraft target is because Michael Penix took over the helm at Week 16, okay? And at Week 16, Drake London did even better, and he got progressively better throughout those final weeks. His target share from 16, 17, 18 went 8, 13, and 18 for targets. His catches linearly progressed with that at 5, 7, and 10. In those final 3 weeks of the season, he caught 352 yards and 2 touchdowns in those 3 weeks. So he has some established repertoire with Penix. These guys are going to progress even more this year, and I think there's a lot of value to be had in Drake London. They're going to keep getting better as they throw this offseason. Kyle, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, two good young players. Their performance there at the end of last season, you pull that forward to this year, and it's like, all right, I could see big upside here especially for Drake.
Yeah, PPR leagues especially too.
All right, I'm gonna dive into a dynasty approach here. I'm gonna talk about a dynasty target. I'm gonna say Garrett Wilson.
Okay.
The QB situation, him reuniting with Justin Fields, and lack of other receiving options. I think he's going to have a massive target share. And Garrett Wilson is only 24 years old.
Yep.
I think the offense will be better. You don't have any Devontae Adams to steal any red zone targets, and Aaron Rodgers playing
all the targets.
And Aaron Rodgers playing heavy favoritism. I think the offense will be a little bit better, honestly. So I like Garrett Wilson this year for a target in Dynasty. And then a rookie for Dynasty leagues. I like RJ Harvey, Denver. Could he be the next Reggie Bush under Sean Payton? He's a good rushing and receiving weapon. There's really not, they let Jonathan Williams go. So there's a lot of room for him in this offense. He was drafted in the 2nd round, and Denver considered him to be their top RB, only behind Jeanty.
Okay. And the drafter, Sam.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Whatever you do in the Dynasty League, do not steal him from me when we draft rookies.
That's it.
Otherwise, I'm coming for you.
I'm taking him first overall now, just out of spite.
No. Any thoughts on those?
No, I like it. I think, Denver still has a couple backs in there with Mims, another similar guy who's similar to, playmaking, can catch, can run. So there's still some other heads involved in that offense, but, Denver's going to be a run-first approach again. So I like where your head's at with that, a little more under the radar. Garrett Wilson, a beast, absolutely. Ken Fields get him the ball. We're going to find out. We're going to find out pretty quickly on that one.
I mean, I think about how good Fields was for DJ Moore, and I see a very similar thing there.
Okay. Fair enough.
Obviously, that was 2 years ago before they had the other two weapons there.
Yep, of course.
Okay, so free agency moves. We're breaking down the Raiders this week. I'm just going to run through the offensive free agency moves thus far. The big one, quarterback Geno Smith, acquired via trade from Seattle, signed to a 2-year deal. Next up, Raheem Mostert, 1-year contract. Offensive guard Alex Kappa signed a 2-year deal. Tight end Ian Thomas, 1-year deal. 3 wide receivers, Colin Johnson, Kyle Phillips, Kadir is small.
Oh, nice. Very well said.
Well, thank you.
I was a little nervous.
Hopefully, he doesn't give me any hate for that.
I was a little nervous for you on that one, but that sounded pretty good.
3 wide receivers there. And then a big re-signing, not on the offensive side of the ball, but you want to mention Crosby, obviously the defensive
the heart and soul of that defense.
He really is.
I mean, what a player. What a player he is.
Offensive departures so far. Minshew mania will not be a thing this year. Gardner Minshew.
See you later.
Signed with Kansas City. Interesting. Alexander Madison signed with the Miami Dolphins. The tight end Harrison Bryant signed with the Eagles. Wide receiver Terrence Marshall Jr. signed with the Eagles. Center Andre James signed with the Chargers. Wide receiver Micah Gallup was cut. He didn't really do much at all last season. I think that was like a post-camp departure cut.
He had a little mental retirement.
Yep. We talked about him going to Washington. And QB Desmond Ridder, free agent. Amir Abdullah, free agent. Offensive guard Cody Whitehair, free agent. Offensive guard Andres Pete, free agent. And wide receiver DJ Turner, free agent.
Yeah. I mean, after hearing that, I mean, they brought Geno in and they got rid of Gardner and Ridder, who are, I mean, two of those guys had a majority of the snaps. Obviously not Ridder, but Minshew had a majority of the snaps last year. So they are fully on the Geno Smith train at 34 years old, bringing in Pete Carroll as boy with that. Seattle is in Las Vegas.
It's kind of what it feels like, partially at least.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you dish us out the draft picks?
Yes, sir. We're going to breeze through them, but most notably, Ashton Jeanty, first-round pick, number 6 overall. And these days, it is rare to see a running back go that early. So they are expecting some serious playmaking abilities from this cat. Ashton Jeanty is a beast. We're going to get into him more when we get into running backs. He skipped his 40-yard dash and bench in the draft, which I found that interesting. Obviously, with someone with, that goes that high, they can kind of do that and get away with it. But I do think that speaks to his top-end speed maybe not being as high as it could be with other players. Why otherwise run it? But again, if you know you're going to go in the first 10 picks, do you really care? Guess we'll find out. Pick number 2, Jack Beach out of TCU. This is an Bech. Beach. Oh, there we go.
We're going to the beach.
Let's go.
Jack's going to the beach.
We're going to butcher that and say that's beach for the rest of the day. Out of TCU, this guy is comps to a Cooper Kupp. Not the fastest guy in the book, not the fastest guy in the team.
I think
Great hands.
He's quite a bit bigger.
He is. He's 6'2", which
he's a middle of the field receivers from what I was seeing from college.
Yep, absolutely. And another guy that did not run his 40 in the combine. Again, I don't think he's the fastest guy in the room, but he has great hands. He has great hands, great route running. He's a guy that just kind of gets open for his quarterback, which I think Geno is going to appreciate. Moving right along, they have a lot of draft picks, you guys. So I'm going to beast through some of these. In round 3, they have 3 of them. Cornerback Darian Porter out of Iowa State, guard Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech, and offensive tackle Charles Grant out of William and Mary. Okay, so they did add some offensive line pieces, which is essential because this offensive line was god-awful last year, and they still need to improve it even more in order for me to be high in some of these players. Finishing out some of their picks, Dante Thornton, Tonka Hemingway, J.J. Pegues.
And then a couple of QBs.
Yeah, 6. They're going for a little sleeper with Tommy Malott, Montana State, Cam Miller, North Dakota State, and then their last pick, linebacker Cody Lindenberg. I mean, a lot of draft picks, you guys. That's over 10 right there. Yeah, they had a lot of picks.
3 in the 3rd round, another 3 in the 6th round.
Yeah, but for fantasy purposes, we'll focus on Ashton. We'll focus on Mr. Beach, and we'll go from there. Anything you want to mention on with those draft picks before I go over the Raiders?
I mean, we'll talk about those in the fantasy relevance. Jeanty and Bech are really the 2 that mean anything for fantasy at all.
Yep.
Obviously, Jeanty is the big boy here.
Absolutely. All righty.
What about the Raiders? How did they do last year? Why don't you get into that?
Well, pretty piss poor, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Division, Raiders. Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos.
My goodness.
All good teams. All double-digit wins.
The AFC West is stacked, and they minus the Chiefs, they have a lot of youth. I mean, the Chargers and Broncos are younger, up-and-coming teams, great defenses. This is one of the better, if not, this is one of the better divisions in football. The Raiders finished at the absolute bottom of it, 4-13. I like to point out that every other team in this division had at least 10 wins. So that just goes to show like these guys are a bit farther out from the playoffs than I think a lot of people think. Rushing rank last year for the Las Vegas Raiders, 32nd. Could not get any worse. 79.8 rushing yards per game. Passing rank, this surprised me a little bit, 13th in the NFL with 223 passing yards per game. You can thank Brock Powers a lot for that. You can thank them being behind most games for some of that because they had to throw to try and catch up. But again, an abysmal rushing attack. And it's interesting because they went out and grabbed a running back 6 overall. Should that have been maybe an offensive lineman instead? Well, I guess we're going to find out. You ready to dive into some players?
Yes, let's get into fantasy relevant players. All right, let's start us off with guy behind center, big trade, Geno Smith. Geno Smith was quarterback 14 last year in fantasy for Seattle Seahawks.
Not bad.
ESPN's early projection rankings have him at quarterback 27. Ooh. ESPN is dogging him right now.
Big time.
Last year, he threw for over 4,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, 15 picks, and he ran it in twice. So obviously he had much better, well, I guess, established weapons in DK, Tyler Lockett and JSN.
I mean, he's severely downgrading at his offensive
receivers.
Weapons.
Yes, I agree.
And obviously DK isn't there anymore, but nonetheless, I think that's part of the reason why ESPN is dog walking him on these projections. But, you're losing 3 solid weapons for a Brock Powers, for a tight end weapon. And on top of that, new team, new offense. Obviously, he has plenty of relationship with Pete Carroll there. Yeah. I mean, let's face facts with Geno Smith. Geno Smith took the world by storm in 2022 with his breakout year.
Yeah.
Okay. He had almost 70% completion percentage that year, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He absolutely went off. And I want to have a little side pro tip of the day here. That was a contract year for Geno Smith in 2022.
Oh, my
and
man.
as we know, contract years are when you are going to get absolute production from your players. So the pro tip of the day is you want to find value in your drafts, folks. Go through all the players that are on a contract year and highlight them on your draft sheet because they are going to put out because they want to get paid. And when you have millions upon millions of dollars on the line, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I'd go to the gym early and eat my Wheaties every day for sure if it was a contract year.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't see me skipping bench press, Jeanty.
Does Geno Smith finish around quarterback 27? I think he does better than that.
I think he does better also. I would take, better on that. I mean, I'm not as high. I'm like, from what I see a lot of people discuss about Pete Carroll and all the changes and Tom Brady's ownership and those, what they've done so far. I think they're kind of like overhyping it a little bit.
Yeah, the media.
And I don't think he'll have another 4,300 yards like he did in Seattle last year. But he could. I think QB 16,
so you're
14, 16, like is his like ceiling in my opinion.
So he has a chance to finish top 20 QB.
Yes. I would say that would be his ceiling. And I think you're going to get a lot of production then if that happens from obviously the tight end. Bowers is probably going to finish as freaking tight end 1. And I think Meyers has a great season. And I think Bech also has to have a great season. And Tre Tucker needs to have a very contributing role in the offense. But I would put him more like closer to 20.
Okay.
Obviously, we'll get our rankings statted out as we get closer with ADP. But I am much higher than ESPN, but still not as high as he finished last year.
Yeah, I think 18 to 22, somewhere in there is where I'd put him. Top 20 potential, yes, not too much better than that with the lack of weapons, worse offensive line, as we've mentioned.
He is 34 years old also. So, with a kind of a rebuilding offense, I was a little surprised at this move. But then you think about the coaching with Pete Carroll, and it's like he makes sense. They can communicate. They can run the offense. They can be somewhat. I'm not going to say they're going to be a contender or compete, but I think they'll be a much improved team this year. And then they'll probably work on building the quarterbacks underneath him.
You know, and I wonder if there's someone that's in the college right now, it's a year or two out from the draft that they have their eyes on because all their specialty players are young right now, minus the QB position.
Well, they
Receivers are young,
drafted
tight
two
ends young,
late this
but
draft,
this is
so
true.
maybe
Whether
they
those,
have one of those they can improve upon and develop.
yeah, you know, whether one of those makes the roster or not, I guess we'll see. But specialty players pretty young, minus the QB position, and you know, we'll see how they deal with that as the time comes.
Okay. All right, so we like him a little higher than the ESPN early projections, but we're projecting him less than last year for sure. Yeah. Offensive line, I think, will play a big role. You'll get into that. Let's talk about the divas he's throwing the ball to. Jakobi Meyers last year, wide receiver 29, standard scoring. Early projections are wide receiver 47 from ESPN. I honestly think they're dogging him a little bit too.
Yeah.
I think he's honestly one of the more underrated wide receivers in the NFL.
Yep.
He's not a sexy guy, but last year, 129 targets, 87 grabs, over 1,000 yards, and of course, only 4 touchdowns. You know, Brock probably dominated the touchdown share in this offense, so that hurts him there. But I do think he's a solid receiver. Fantasy, I would see a similar production here, with a little more touchdown upside with an improved offense. Would be the best possible case for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, he's going to have a better quarterback thrown to him in Geno, and he is the number 1 receiver on this team. And this team, we just went through their division, is tough as heck, tough as nails. They are going to be playing from behind a lot. He's going to get his targets, he's going to get his catches, and he's going to get plenty of looks because the Raiders are going to have to throw the ball to try and come back into games. So for projections of 47, I think is a big slap in the face. You know, maybe top 20 is his ceiling by far, you know, if you can even say that. But I think 2025, he can easily finish right around there. And yeah, they're dogging him on this for sure.
Yeah, I'd have him probably closer to wide receiver 30.
Okay.
But I do think ESPN is, you know, a little dogging him right now.
Yeah. Going to the beach.
Going to the beach, yes. All right. Jack Bech. Early ESPN projections have him at wide receiver 52. So they're actually, you know, considering he's a rookie, I think they're pretty high on him in this offense.
Yep.
Especially for a guy who's not going to be, you know, the elite talent, in my opinion, but he's going to be I would see him being a chain mover over the field, a productive guy in the offense, someone like a Cooper Kupp where Geno can get it to in a clutch, move the chains, keep the drive alive.
Yeah.
They're projecting him for 750 yards and 4 touchdowns.
You know, what I like most about this guy is in his last year in college, 91 targets, only 1 drop. So he's got hands.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
When a quarterback sees and hears that, and once he feels that, once he gets thrown with him, that's called how you're going to build some trust with a veteran quarterback. And to your point, he's absolutely going to help them move the chains on certain plays. He's not going to be a guy that's breaking away from some of the fast defensive backs in the league. But he is absolutely going to be more of that Cooper Kupp-esque, like we talked about, getting open, getting in the right spot with a good route, and catching the ball and making some plays.
Yep. So for fantasy, I'm probably going to leave him be. If I see early in the season, I think in most leagues he'll be available, honestly, on the waiver wire. If I see heavy target share week 1 and really involved in the offense, I would be open to changing my mind, but right now I'm pretty much out on him. Tre Tucker is a similar thing. Finished wide receiver 61 last year, so really not relevant for fantasy purposes unless it's a super deep league. He had 47 catches, 539 yards, and 3 touchdowns last year. And they're projecting him with a similar role in the offense. He's a good offensive wide receiver, but he's not going to be good for fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, let's also point out here with some of these guys that, you know, they're a little bit off the paper, if you will, but there's no Davante Adams, which means there's a lot of targets to come early and often to some of these young guys for them to make some plays and to become that guy, you know, to stand out a little bit.
This is true.
There's plenty of vacant targets from Davante being gone. And, you know, it's really going to be up to these young cats to make the most of their opportunities. And they're absolutely all going to have a chance to, which is exciting for them. And, you know, hopefully that fuels their fire and turns them into some playmakers out there.
All right.
Tucker, I want to mention 4.4 speed. He's a fast guy. He's one of the faster guys on this offense. Yep, he's one of the faster ones for sure. So if you're looking for a speedy little flyer, Tre Tucker's the man for that at 24 years old.
Okay, good drop. And the big boy on the team, really, to me, is Brock Bowers. He is the
Big
most
time.
exciting. I mean, Genty's there also, but Brock Bowers is the most exciting weapon on this offense.
Woo-wee.
This man is elite
Yeah,
receiving tight end.
yeah.
Elite. I was watching film on him, one-handed grabs. Like, it didn't matter. Aiden O'Connell, Minshew, who's thrown to him. We could go out there and throw him the ball, and he's going to look great. All right.
Just get it in his vicinity.
So he's, tight end one pretty much probably on everybody's board.
Yeah, and I mean, and what he finished last year, tight end 2 behind Kittle.
You finished tight end 2 behind Kittle. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, when is the last time we've had a rookie tight end performance like this? I think of Sam Laporta, and even then, he didn't produce these types of
I don't
numbers.
know ever, right?
I mean,
rookie tight ends are historically not the best at producing, and Brock Bowers destroyed that.
Yes, he did. I mean, 112 catches, over 1,000 yards. That is nothing to scoff at right there. He is a stud.
So they're actually projecting a few less grabs for him this year. Otherwise, a very similar performance, but their earliest ESPN projections on his stats are a little less, but they're still projecting him at tight end 1.
Yeah, for sure. I think he'll have more catches. I think he's going to get more in 112. I don't know why they're projecting him less when there's a vacant, stud on that.
He had 150 targets last year.
Yeah, I don't see it being any less than that. I don't see it being any less than that. I think more, if anything, you're going to put it in your playmaker's hands, and there's not a lot of mouths to feed that are proven, and he's the one proven receiver on this team.
The backup tight end, Michael Mayer, I mean, they are whispers that he is going to be a little more involved for receiving. And Pete Carroll, I don't think he's ever really done a great job at promoting a very high-level tight end in an offense. But I don't know why. I mean, I don't care who the head coach is, offense coordinator. You got this guy on your team, you throw him the ball.
Yep. 10 times a game, if not more. That's 160, 170 a year right there. I mean, at least. With Brock Bowers, let me ask you this. So in a one quarterback league, in a draft, where in the draft are you starting to go, holy crap, I might have to take this guy? Is it round 3? Is it round 2? Is it end around? I mean, where in your mind are you wanting him?
I think when we get closer to doing some mocks and you get ADP coming out, I'll have a better answer for you on that question.
Okay.
Personally speaking, draft strategies, I've never been one to target tight end first.
Yeah.
So I usually wait till the first couple go off the board, and then in my tier, I'll have a top 3, top 5 tight end tier. And then once I see those other players go and it comes to me and I like what I got, and the last guy in my tier is available at a mid-round, that's usually when I snag it if I'm snagging it. Otherwise, I'm finding value later on in most drafts. PPR, I like to target tight ends a little bit earlier just because they have more value. Personally, a good tight end has a better point spread, right?
Yep.
So that's how I look at that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a lot of good teams that they do have one of those studly tight ends. They pick them a little bit early. They figure out the rest of their squad surrounding that, but you can have, I mean, when we're going head to head with an even team, if you have the upper end of the tight end position, it can make or break a victory from week to week. So
it's a difference maker on the team. I mean, for example, last year in our 2 QB league, I took Trey McBride, I believe in the 5th or 6th round.
Sure.
So it's stuff like that is where I would take those guys. Obviously, he's going to go way higher than that.
Yeah.
But we don't know until we start seeing those ADPs shake out. And with the first one off the board, it's always a gamble, and it's very league specific.
Yeah.
Like in a Raiders, Vegas home team, he's probably going to go ridiculously high.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you're drafting in Vegas, maybe you're in the moment and he's there.
That could happen. I could see alcohol persuading that.
Jeanty, tell me your thoughts on Jeanty.
Yes. So Jeanty, I mean, what a talent this guy is. My biggest standouts from film is he can make people miss in the hole. There were so many times where I've seen a D tackle or linebacker meet him in the hole where he would have been dead to rights, and he just made a little bit of a jump cut, a little bit of a move, and just totally lost that guy and kept on running. He can break tackles. He can bounce off defenders and keep the play alive. He's great at creating space for himself. He's 5'9". Okay, so a very small dude. And you'll know when Jeanty's in the backfield because the dude stands straight upright because he's 5'9". And my guess is he does this so he can see over the tackles even when the tackles are bent over. But this dude is completely upright. There's a couple, I think Kyron Williams kind of stands like that in the backfield too. His top end speed isn't his best trait, if you will, but phenomenal at jump cutting, phenomenal being, tough to bring this cat down. One thing with rookie running backs that keeps rookie running backs off the field is their inability to block. Okay. And with this guy, he does not have that. He has the ability to block, which is going to
He's a beefy
help
dude.
to keep him on the field, throw more plays, third down plays. It's going to help him with target share in the receiving end of things. So he does have, running back one potential, which is very rare for a rookie. And obviously that's why they drafted him so high up. Now, my last kind of contrarian viewpoint on this is running backs rarely in their rookie year are top 10 running backs for fantasy within that position. Okay. Over the last 10 years, 19 of 148 rookie running backs have finished top 24 in fantasy football. So to get a guy to finish top 10, let alone top 24, is very difficult. And then the last kind of comparison I want to draw is Bijan finished ninth running back in his rookie year. And I think Bijan is a more explosive talent than Jeanty is. I think Bijan has way more talent, way more quickness. So the fact that ESPN is projecting him at running back 5, I think is excessive. And you compound that with a terrible offensive line. Granted, they made some moves and they got a little better, but it's a terrible offensive line. They finished 32nd in rushing. So does a 32nd in rushing team all of a sudden get the 5th best running back the next year? I do not think so. I think if he gets top 10, it'd be great for him. I wouldn't even have him in the top 10 for me.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts because the sexy first rookie running back off the board, and for the actual draft, it's sexy. You want it. You want to draft it. I know. I will say the offensive line, that's going to speak volumes. However, I'm going to be a little higher on him than you are. I would say top 10 is where I would have him this year. I think, Bijan is a great comp, different style runners, but I think it's a great comp. You think about Bijan, though, in his rookie year, he shared the rock a lot in that backfield. Those are run heavy, good offensive line. Yeah. But he shared a lot. And I think Bijan's going to be the workhorse here. And I think Pete Carroll, they're going to be at least balanced, if not a little run heavy offense.
Sure. So, Pete Carroll does like to run the football. So that's a good counter argument there, because you're right. He is going to get more of the shares than Bijan did. He doesn't have an LG or a young stud right behind him. But with that,
he's got an old man and Raheem, and then he's got Zamir if Zamir's still there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting hit right away at the line of scrimmage every play in the NFL, I think it's going to be tough. His yards after contact, I think, is going to be great. I think he's going to have some upside there, but top 5 running back with a
so let me give you that line. ESPN early projections: Bijan, Saquon, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, then Jeanty at 6, then Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, Kyren Williams, James Cook.
I mean, in front of Achane, that's no chance. That's a slap in the face to Achane.
I think Achane's got big play ups. They're just two different runners.
They are. They are.
I think he's in the tier with those guys. I think he's clearly not in the tier with Saquon.
He's in the tier with his ability, but behind that offensive line, until I see that offensive line push a defensive line back a couple feet, I don't.
Okay, we'll downgrade him a little for the offensive line, of course. But being the workhorse, I think he gets upgrade, and he's got the stats for being like a ridiculous amount of yards after contact, ridiculous from college. So if he can do that in the NFL, I think he'll be in there. He'll be in that range and be in that tier.
Okay. So you think he can finish as a top 5 RB?
I say top 10.
Okay.
I would put him at 5 to 10. Top 5, I would prefer other guys. I think that is within his realm, absolutely. But I don't think he does it his rookie year.
Okay. Yeah, and I think his absolute ceiling is 10th. I don't think a position above that. I think more in the 15 to 20, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. The guy behind him just signed Raheem Mostert. You don't say anything for fantasy. I'm out on him. He's old. I don't know exactly what they were thinking here, just as a depth piece, change of pace, receiving guy. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, they got rid of like Abdullah or whoever else, so there isn't a lot of depth in this backfield. So they did need to add some there. I had Raheem Mostert last year as a share, not as a high pick, of course, but I had him as like my RB3 on my team because the previous year he had infinite amounts of touchdowns. He vultured A-Chain's touchdowns, and he went off. And last year, folks, he fell off a cliff. He was injured. He didn't get the ball that often. He coughed up the ball a couple of times. Unfortunately, Raheem Mostert is dead to me fantasy-wise, especially after last year having to play him a couple times and just being absolutely disappointed. Maybe he helps lead Jeanty a little bit here and shows him the ropes. But outside of that, fantasy-wise, if he's on your team and starting, you messed up in your draft, unfortunately.
Yeah, feel the same. Oh, let's talk about the coaches. So obviously the big one, Pete Carroll from Seattle, and Chip Kelly. I guess he wasn't directly from Seattle last year, but most well known for his work in Seattle, I would probably say. Chip Kelly as new offense coordinator. Chip Kelly's offensive strategy is usually like a fast-paced, no-huddle spread offense, different run zones, like outside run zones, and employs some RPO options typically. I'm curious to see how they merge together a little bit here in Oakland. I do think it'll be at the very least more of a balanced offense. I would lean like they're going to try and run the ball with this pick and to be able to open up plays in the passing game. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be run the ball, play action, passing game, and then we'll see what they do with RPOs or how much they do spread it out. But they're not like, Washington where they're going out and they got tons of depth at receiver. So to me, they're going to focus on just solid fundamental football, run the ball, open up passes, play action. That's how I see that. Some of the notable also, they fired Tom Telesco, general manager. John Spytek was named new general manager. He's got a long-standing relationship with Tom Brady. They were teammates in college and with the Tampa Bay Bucks. So, bringing in his buddy over there, that's how that stuff works. Big overhaul also, quarterbacks coach Greg Olson, not the former tight end player, returns as the quarterbacks coach. Previously worked with Carroll in Seattle in the same role. So you got same quarterbacks coach, Geno Smith, Pete Carroll. So a lot of familiarity there in that offense. And then the run game coordinator and assistant quarterbacks coach are two of Pete Carroll's sons. So really a family approach there. Interesting.
Yeah, that's questionable.
Any takes on that?
Well, I'm excited for it. They got a lot of new faces in here. What I'm curious for, do you think Tom Brady has any impact on this team within the passing game, within Geno? Or do you think it's just kind of a look? Or do you think, does he think there's impact in there? Do you think he's helping out, saying, hey, call this year or, anything like that?
I think this year they're kind of just figuring it out and trying to build. And I think Geno is going to be a guy that's going to help them build the offense. And then they're going to get younger quarterbacks in there eventually to learn. Is how I would look at this. First, let's establish our offense. Let's, this is what we're going to be doing. We got a great running back we want for a while. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. And I guess on the other aspect, I don't know if I've seen Chip Kelly actually have an impact on an NFL team. He's been great at the collegiate level. I don't know if I've seen him have
he had some time in Philadelphia where he had some good runs.
And that was just shorter stint with a really talented team. But we'll see. I don't think he's had a successful round yet. But
give us this bad offense line breakdown in 30 seconds.
Oh, boy. Well, the offense ranked 23rd, absolutely terrible against the blitz. And as we said, terrible with the run. What the Raiders did in this offseason was last year their offensive line got hurt quite a bit, which ailed them even more. But they gave themselves some flexibility and some depth on this offensive line. Okay, they have multiple guys who are going to compete for the starting roles. They don't have a set five, like these are our five guys. We have like 8 to 9 pieces that it's like these guys are going to compete all offseason, and that competition is going to breed who the starters are going to be. Pete wants to run the football, as we know, so they did get 2 guys early in the draft in the guard and tackle. Right now, the line reads from left to right: Colton Miller, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Dylan Parham, and DK Glaze. And then any guys that could swoop in and take these positions: Alex Kappa, the recent addition, and then there are 2 young guys they drafted in Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. So again, what I see from this is improvement, yes, depth, yes, but they didn't add any studs that are like this offensive line is immediately better. There was none of that added. They had depth, they had flexibility. So does it get better? Yeah, you can't get much worse than 32nd in rushing. But is it what they need